Randomly with Ronnie Jr.
All right, so we're checking in now with Pablo Barrera, who's lounging, it looks like, because I believe you have a hammock behind you, which is your style, your vibe.
Yep.
Pablo Barrera, aerial cinematographer, production extraordinaire on so many different levels, and longtime collaborative friend that I've had a pleasure to work with through American Latino TV. We have worked on that project, both respectively, 10 years, 10 years, or I don't know. It just seems like a long, long time. So I've known him for a long time. But what you're doing now with aerial cinematography, your own business, Xizmo, which I believe is Spanish and earthquake. Wait, right? It's not.
Yes.
Not Spanish and earthquake. Earthquake and Spanish.
Yes.
Anyways, Xizmo Media. Pablo, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about your career and give me a compliment because I'm amazing and that's what counts.
Yeah. No, of course you're amazing, and I have a lot of respect for you and your work, which is why we've worked together for so many years now. I want to say, well, at least 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Would you say?
And it spanned different coasts because I'm from California. You originally from Ecuador.
We worked together even remotely when you were in
that's what I was going to get at. Like
we worked together in when you were we started remotely in California.
Yep.
Then face to face in New York.
Yeah.
Then remotely again when you moved to Arizona. Then remotely again in California. Then back together face to face in New York. And now back in California.
That's a lot of moving for me, and we bring
a lot of moving for you, but a consistency on the professional relationship.
Well, yeah, and referencing what you're talking about, or I'm talking about, American Latino TV is a television program that's got 4 segments per 30-minute episode, and they're basically it would be as if you're doing 20-minute interviews and you condense them to a 4-minute, almost like docu-style thing. Pablo and I worked on that project for such a long time and still do, slash all the other things.
Not less than before, but it will still do, both of us.
But it was one of those things where it was really cool because working on American Latino TV, we'll get to aerial cinematography in a minute, but working with you on American Latino TV was good because I remember like having such passion with the project, and so did you. Like we really got an excitement on getting whoever was our guest for that particular segment, taking this 20, maybe 40-minute interview, because if you interview with Ronnie,
your interviews are like an hour plus. It's not for nothing, but
that's I come from radio, so that's probably where that happens. But I mean, and we both did it though, because I think you've had long interviews too when we're interviewing talent. I mean, I know one of the not recent, but one of the ones that was real cool. You did Carlos Santana. I mean, Gloria Estefan. We've even talked with. Yeah. We've talked with all these people, and it's always so amazing to get, again, 40 minutes of interview and condensing that to the 4 best minutes. Like, to me, that's one of the best jobs. So when you hear Pablo and I talk about pop culture or aerial cinematography or just whatever, know that the base comes from, like, we've worked on so many projects together. Yeah. So when I say, what's your favorite J-Lo song, I know he knows the answer already. So that's what that is.
It's very thought out. It's not just a throwaway.
Yes.
Because I think that's what it does. Like, because when you have to condense a 40-minute, 1-hour interview into realistic, there's not even 4. It's really 3 minutes because you have 1 minute of sound ups and music breaks and like stuff. It's really, take an hour interview, especially if it's interesting.
Right.
And then condense it to 3 minutes. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And you know what it does is also, I mean, of course, you know this, is it builds a lot of sense of compromising, because you have to compromise with yourself a lot to let go of those good bites that are good, that are like solid, but they can't make the cut because
And
they're not cohesive in those 3 minutes, you know.
referring to bites as sound bites, you know.
Yeah.
And some would think this is how passionate we are in the project that we worked for. Again, both of us, you more so, but then I was like there, but then I was freelancing. But American Latino and how we felt about that project, we could talk at length about it because it was really fun. And some, Pablo, I think, would assume that, hey, that's not that hard to take a full hour interview and just, you know, condense it down to 3 minutes because, hey, isn't that what's happening anyways on social media? It's like a quick clip.
Yeah.
You would be wrong because what you're doing is a quick clip. I could do a quick clip right now of me doing this as a boomerang. That's a quick clip. Where's the story there? What we've done, both him and I, and he more than myself even, because Pablo would also edit a lot of the segments. I would do the preliminary edit, but it was a great working friendship, of course, is that we would be able to tell a story in 3 minutes. Like that to me is one of the coolest things. American Latino TV will always be my baby, so to speak, but I don't work on it as much. But I will use those principles in different aspects of storytelling as I'm moving into different platforms.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been the radio guy, radio.
It translates for sure.
Huh?
The skill translates for sure.
Yeah, I want to use that same skill set and transfer it to different aspects of like YouTube and different playlists and podcasting. But yeah, if you ever come across American Latino TV on the LATV.com website or YouTube, I would say like 80% of them we did.
Yeah.
And they were
at least the good ones.
All the good ones, yeah. Pat on the back. I mean, that's what it is. So that's something that we bonded over.
Yeah.
And again, worked like in California to New York, but then California to Arizona. It was like no matter where the location was, we always got the work done, which was really fun. And in the midst of that, or before, but obviously in the midst of it, you continue to grow, and your own business sort of blossoms. Tell me specifically. Well, tell the people what the business is and how it's flourished, and maybe some of the more proud moments that you've had with the Xizmo, which is earthquake in Spanish.
Yeah. Well, it's a very long story, but long story short, I started Xizmo Media I want to say 2008, February 2008. And initially, really, it was just an LLC that I was using to work as a contractor in different productions. I was right out of college. It was also for tax purposes and all that. In the Xizmo as a brand really came from my buddy Carlos, who we grew up together since we were teenagers in high school in New York City. And that was a word that he just had, that was his email. The original Xizmo email was Carlos. And then when I was thinking about doing the company, I asked him, like, dude, I always liked that word that you had and the way that it was spelled and everything. So I borrowed it from him, and it became the company initially just for legal purposes. And then as my buddy Eddie, who was in the Marines at the time, came back to New York from deployments and all that stuff. We had become friends before that in college, studying television production, studying film production. And so I told him, I was like, hey, I already have a company set up legally. So why don't we just team up and then try to, do something for ourselves? Like we can start very small, just regular production. At the time, there was not even an idea of what drones were or the technology at all.
Right.
And then a couple years later, we were introduced to the technology. We both were very, kind of like on our own, but at the same time, very like mesmerized by what the potential of what that could have been. And then so we decided like to just invest whatever little money we had into that. We bought our first drone. We figured out how it worked. we had to learn a lot of things that we didn't, as far as of like engineering, soldering, electrical work, because it was at that time there was not a company that was like, oh, here's my money, give me a drone, that was ready to go for
Right.
production.
What's the timeline on that? Because now when people hear,
We started 2010. 2010 was the first time we decided to go in there. We bought our first drone. I think we spent about 2 years to 2 years and a half to learn the technology, to learn what the components of the drone were, to learn how to fix them, how to make our own. And about 2 years and a half to 3 years later, we got our first client.
okay,
And I remember very exactly. It was like at that time, it was like nobody knew what it was, so it was very novel. It was a novelty whenever we showed up with it. You know, the technology wasn't even there yet. So the you know, once you strap the camera to the drone, it still wasn't very stable. But you know, there was, you know, techniques of how to make it as stable as possible, but it wasn't like nearly as technological as it is today. And I remember one time there's a music festival in New York called Afropunk.
oh, I have been there. My first New York,
Yeah.
I saw
So
Janelle Monáe, Erykah Badu. I was there. That's
we
what
were in that one, but we didn't know of each. I didn't know you were in New York at the time.
That's the funny thing. My work relationship with Pablo went back many years, but my first couple months in New York, necessarily I didn't know that you were there. So it's odd that like I had this great moment, and then you have footage to back it up.
Yeah, and it's funny because you know, as a starting company, you know, with new technology, there was nothing that said, hey, this is what we can do, you know. And so there was a lot of freebies that we had to do, a lot of oh, look, this is what we can do, or whatever, we'll do it for free just for you to like see it or whatever. And that's kind of like what happened. I found out about Afropunk. I knew it was gonna be held in this park in Brooklyn. And, you know, me as a Queens, Brooklyn kid, I was like, oh, that's just, you know, down the street. Let's just
Commodore Barry
out. So, yeah, I emailed them. I was like, hey, look, this is what we're doing.
It was a
we want
email. It wasn't like your contacts through working at American Latino.
Nothing. It was a straight out cold email. It was a straight out cold email. I just send it over in hopefully somebody will read it.
This was like 2011, I think, around that time.
I think so. And then it was really just a cold email that said, hey, look, this is my company. This is the technology we are experimenting with. We would love to have the opportunity to go to the festival, take some shots. We'll give them to you for free. We just want is the access to be able to do it. And we were lucky that they did. And I don't think they ever did anything with the footage because we gave it to them. And till this day, I have looked all over YouTube and I've never seen Afropunk release any of that stuff.
Okay.
But that's how we started. And then so we did some of that stuff. Obviously, it was a novelty. So a lot of people that were at the festival will come to us, will look at the gear, that will talk to us and whatever. Out of that, some guy, it was a German guy that worked for this production company, this commercial production company that had a base in Berlin and it had a base in New York, came to us and he was like, hey, we're working on this Mercedes-Benz project in the company that I work for. And I think we would love to have a drone shot for this spot that we're doing. And then we interchanged contacts. And then a month later, we did a shot for their Mercedes-Benz spot. And that was our very first client that came out of just exposing ourselves in a music festival.
It's the craziest thing, that principle 101 of like you going, like I remember being a kid growing to the Del Amo Mall and you go to the Del Amo Mall and you would see the Cinnabon have a little free sample girl where she's got the little free samples and she's feeding you the free Cinnabon. for some reason, that doesn't not apply to our business aspirations. You know, obviously you don't want to do stuff for free forever, but when you are sectioning off something new, you kind of have to do that first project and say, hey, I want to catch value on this. You know, the festival's already happening. I want the footage that is Afropunk, and what a great festival to cover. And then you could start maneuvering that to your next project and the next and the next and the next.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a free sample thing that has to go on when you're starting. You know.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think when you're starting, you have to do a lot of concessions about financial concessions for sure.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be smart about them. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of people that take advantage of that. But I think if you're smart about them and then you do the right concessions to the right people, then you can move forward from there. But but it takes also. I think there is this, and that's just my perspective. There is this sort of cloud over people in my industry, or basically just production in general, TV or film production, where when you're a freelancer, you never know when the next job is coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're always worried about it. And so there is this cloud of uncertainty that can potentially push you into doing things for free, just in the hopes that that can, bring in some paying work, which is true. But I think you have to do it at the beginning when you don't have anything to show for. But at some point, you also have to, analyze your career and the point on your career where you at and how you progress, where you have to make the conscious decision of, I'm done.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I'm glad you mentioned it.
There's no more freebies. My work has value. And then even if on paper seems like it could be a good opportunity, then you have to be even triple more critical about if it's worth your time for no money to do a project at that point. You know what I mean?
And as I was saying a second ago, by me using that free sample example at the beginning, by no means is saying do this thing, this career and continue to just do it for the experience. Because now that would have been okay if people, the powers that be, the big companies and stuff, treated people well. But a lot of times they don't. So you have to have that different transition within your career where you're like, okay, I'm starting this new thing. I'm gonna have to do the little free samples, so to speak, to kind of leverage the value I have in the marketplace. But you also put that foot down. No gratification you'll get more. And I know I've done it a couple times. We've chatted about this. And I know you've done it a couple times where you get not pitted, but you get pitched, for a project. And then they come at you with some horrible number or damn near free, and they try to arc it with some whole but it will be a great opportunity for you. There's nothing wrong with that at a certain stage. But boy, it's fun when you could turn and say, oh, no, not me, not the cachet that I've built. Now that I've built, and I would do that, Pablo. I would do that when I was working in the radio industry. It was very odd to me because when I was young guppy, when I was, oh, well, what do you need? Everyone loved me. I turned into the biggest jerk, not saying I'm a jerk, but people sometimes reacted that way because I started being like, well, what's the money looking like? And then they say things like, oh, well, you're working with this talent, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, I'm at that stage where I have enough personal cachet, a personal equity that I'm not going to do that. So I don't want to make it sound like at the very beginning that I'm like, yes, always do.
And you know what? It makes it, I don't know if easier is the right word, but it makes it a little, it pushes you to be a little more strict about it a little bit. Because once you start building a company, like for example, in my case, it changes the dynamic. Because when you get into that position, so for example, for me now, I have a company and we're still a small business, but we are doing now bigger projects where I am in the position of having to hire people. You know what I mean? And so I've been in these situations where I've been approached to do a project, and then they'll be like, "Oh no, we don't. We want you to do it for free, or we want you to do it for this very ridiculous rate, but you'll have all this exposure and what have you." And my response is always, well, like, and that's when you have. I don't know if cocky is the right word, but that's when you have to also take value into even the fact that you're getting the phone call, because there's many people that do what I do, you know what I mean? And so when somebody calls me and then they offering me that job, I have to take the position of, well, they calling me for a reason, you know what I mean? Like, they clearly saw my work and they think that I'm the right person for this job. So they're not just calling Joe Schmo, they're calling me. You know what I mean? So obviously they know there's value to my work. And so once you take that stance and then they come to you with a ridiculous rate, then that's when you go like, listen, I'm a business owner. I appreciate and I know the value of credit, or I know the value of exposure for my company. But at the same time, the people that work for me, they don't benefit from it. I still have to pay those people. Those people still have to pay rent and they have bills.
Right.
So you telling me that my company is gonna have all this amount of credit, that means nothing to the people that I hire, because they're not part of the company. They're just employees, and they need to get paid and they need to feed their families. And that's literally sort of like one of the reasons that has helped me be a little more forceful about taking a harder stand a lot with projects that maybe if I was by myself, or if I was starting out, I would have done it. But now I have, maybe, if, to be crass a little bit, now I have big balls to say, listen, this is my rate. If you can't afford it, then I'm not the right company for your project.
Yeah.
You know
And
what
it's
I mean?
I think it's that constant balance. Like, there will always be a push and pull when you're evolving your thing. I remember back in the early days of like video blogging, I was doing a video blog. And when you're doing the video blog, I was working radio mostly, but I'm doing this video blog. And one of my contacts, she wanted me to like do a video blog collaboratively with her, but it was more like I was going to be doing all the editing, setting it up, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, no, I think I'm good. Anyways, flash forward a year later, I love the girl. She's a great, good, talented radio girl. A year later, or 6 months later, she ends up booking a reality show on the Mundos Network with the late Jenny Rivera, or what Jenny Rivera presents. And all of a sudden, she's like, "Oh, remember I told you I want to do that video blog thing? I still want you involved." And I said, "Oh, well, that's nice, that's sweet." And she goes, "Yeah, but can you do it on my reality show now?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's cool." I wasn't gonna say yes to me doing like a video blog for us and me doing all the work, but I'm definitely down for, I say that to say that I hope that I was chosen for that, because it was me having an air about myself. Like, no, I can't really. If I do a video blog, that's how I want to do it. But I don't do free stuff for you. God bless you, but I just don't. I don't know if that's what you were saying, but something in that vein.
It is something in that regard. I mean, because you also have to be strategic about those things. Like right now, I mean, I've been fortunate that my company has grown to the point where we are financially stable, and then we get to hire people, and we get to say no to a lot of people without having repercussions to our bottom line, and then it is, but you also, but at the same time, I still have done stuff for cheap, but those are more strategic, and even not, either they're strategic or either they're from the heart. You know what I mean? If it's a project that I think has some value, then I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll do it for cheap, because it aligns with my feelings, or it aligns with my thing, and I look at it more as a charity than anything else. You know what I mean? So sometimes you gotta be strategic. Like, for example, I'll tell you like a recent thing that we just did. Like, we did this video you kindly have been pushing for us as well, that we took some shots of New York City in this very particular way, and then and then we did it just because of it was a particularly unique opportunity to catch New York in this fashion, and so on and so forth. And so we put a lot of thought behind it, and it was just a personal project for us. And then we just did it, and then because we're lucky that we have the equipment and we have the time and we can do it, and it's just a passion project that just happened right away and whatever. And then we just put it out there, right? And then obviously as it circulates certain circles, we got a call. We got not a call, but we had an email from this management company, right? And the email was, "Hey, we're the management company of this." I'm not gonna, disclose the name, but it's like this artist who is one of the musicians for this very, very, very big band. Actually, there's two big bands, right?
Okay.
Rock bands. And he's doing this solo project, and he has this song that he wants to make this lyric video that seems very uplifting for the times that we're living right now, and we would like to use some of your footage. And I was like, oh, yeah, great, because they already saw the video. The video is public, they saw it, and so they just want the raw footage of some of those shots. And then it's obviously my immediate response is like, yeah, sure, I have no problem. What's your budget? You know what I mean? Because we already shot it, so now I'm looking at it more into like licensing mode.
Yep.
So
exactly.
I'm like, okay, so what's your budget? And then the response is, oh, we don't have a budget. We just want to do it for the sake of doing it, and whatever. And so then I'm like, yeah, no, because it's like, what do you mean you don't have a budget? You know what I mean? So the way I look at it is that, okay, got it. It's a different project, but here's the thing: is that if he wants to do this project for himself, because this is everything has value in any way, shape, or form, right? So he's doing this project for himself, solo career, for his solo project, right? This guy is not poor. When I'm saying like this guy is a musician for two really successful big bands, I'm gonna take a walk as he has the capital. So if you want to do this video, the way I'm looking at it, as in the business, from a business perspective, is like that for you, you're trying to make an investment, because if that video goes viral, the only one that wins, it's you, because it's going to be your brand, it's going to be your song, it's going to be your music, it's going to be all about you. Even if you put footage provided by Xizmo Media on the description, that means nothing. You know what I mean? Not many people watch the description. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, no, my product is not for free. It's even if I release it for free for my own purposes, but I'm doing it for my value, for my brand.
But
I'm
if
not
I'm
gonna help you
licensing
build
it
your
to
brand for
you,
nothing. You know
well,
what I
that's
mean?
the thing. It's a
And
shame.
then it's like, you're gonna tell me you don't have money, your personal money to invest. If it's your solo project, you should invest on your solo project.
That's the harsh side of it, and we'll get into some of the Xizmo successes and some of the great projects you guys have worked on that have been good. But we did spend a lot of time here talking about that push and pull, because it is so necessary.
I think it's very necessary, especially for people that are watching this, that it might be inspired by this, because that's how you change the culture.
Well, by
watching people that have the balls to say no, because that's, like, we lived it, I mean, the culture has changed. We lived it. We did a lot of the heavy lifting of trying to build a career, doing things for free and whatnot. And then we were fortunate that now we get to pick and choose the stuff that we want to do for free, just because. But I think that people that might see this, that are young and they're starting out in the industry, they can have value of seeing our experiences with it, and then making that decision making for themselves of what it's worth it and what's not, to move forward.
It's and push and pull. Those are the words we should remember. It's always push and pull. And the reason I did spend a lot of time on it, and I even like threw out some really like silly radio related experiences. Obviously, they were not exactly what you said, but it was relatable. And here's why I say it's relatable is, yes, when you're new, you're starting off, you're starting to build that cachet. But the reason Pablo and myself have had to put our foot down on some levels and passed up great stuff, but you have to put your foot down, is one simple reason. Because it makes no sense that these people with these gigantic budgets are the tightest with the money for some reasons. I always think about like all the productions I work at, and I will say name and name. It's not me being shady because I did get some value in I'll say it. It's not a big deal, but I'll say that of all the productions I've worked at, Pablo, that they're all generally pretty fun. The one that I was more surprised that they were real tight. I mean, real tight with the money. Was in America's Got Talent, and the value that I did a second season of America's Got Talent was because it was Howard Stern's last season, and I'm such a radio freak, so to be around raw Howard Stern footage in the post-production department, that was I remember like trying to always get shifted to, I'll look at footage and I'll cut like a string out. I think we used Avid at the time. And getting my feet wet in post-production. So I did it, but it always shocked me that I'm like, this is like this huge NBC America's Got Talent show, and for some reason, the people that are at the lower level still trying to earn their place in this industry, because I hadn't done post-production until this job, and I loved it, but I was like always dumbfounded why the pay was so low. And then you go on projects where like things are such a low budget thing, skeleton crew, and the money's good, the respect is good. It's very odd. So it's very important to know these things. And I think that's why you guys have been so successful with Xizmo, because you don't ever put a blanket rule. You kind of look at each situation and you're like, oh, great, a chance to work with like Beyonce. I don't know. It's you have to know that it's pure to what you guys are doing. Let's talk about some of the super, super fun stuff that you guys have done. And you could even allude to some of the gearhead type things. Because I don't know much about equipment, but I do know that I've seen some recent stuff you guys have done. Big things. The one that really sticks out most, I guess, is all the complexities and the moving parts. That was the gentleman who walked over hot lava in Nicaragua. And you guys, what was the task, and how did you do it?
The task was very straightforward. So the project was it was broadcasted on the ABC prime time. The project was Nick Wallenda, Volcano Life. That was the title of the project. And if you're not familiar with Nick Wallenda is one of those. He is a
tightrope walker.
He's a tightrope walker, but more than that is like that's his life. He comes from a generational family that's done that for generations and generations. Like his grandfather died from falling from a tightrope in an event in Puerto Rico. His grandfather did it, his great grandfather did it, his father did it, his whole family does it. So they're a circus family, but that's the act that they do.
That's right? How they teach their kids how to walk when they
exactly. I think so.
You want shoes? No, take it to the road. Yeah,
exactly. And then, but I think Nick has been very smart about the changing of culture, because like circus are not as popular, I will say, as they once were. Because entertainment has changed. There's a lot of more sources of entertainment that back in the day when going to the circus was a thing. You know what I mean? And so he's been very smart about making this very death-defying stunts and making them into a primetime event that ABC will broadcast. So we're talking like multi-million-dollar budget event where, he's walked Niagara Falls, he's walked the Grand Canyon, he's walked Chicago, like the skyscrapers. He's walked Times Square. So every time he just ups the ante, because that's his gig. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's his job. Is to, the following has to be bigger, has to be more dangerous, has to be everything bigger. You know, and so we were lucky enough that we got the call to be part of this new death-defying project, which was him, Nick Walena, walking a tightrope that was going across this active volcano in Nicaragua. So this guy literally walked a tightrope over a hot pool of lava in Nicaragua. So us as a drone company, we were tasked with the job of capturing this record-breaking event and this record-breaking action, you know, aerially with our drones. You know, we've been doing this for many years. We've done a lot of movies, we've done a lot of TV shows, but this one in particular was very special to me, in particular as the head of the company, because it require a lot more logistics in our end. Because when we do a TV show, when we do a movie, it's like everything. Everything is, you know, you can rehearse, you can do it all over again. If you miss the
back to
shot,
one.
you know, back to one, and it's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot more things that come into play.
Right.
But
If Nick goes back to one, he might fall in the lava. So
exactly,
you know, make sure the drone team is on point.
Exactly, but not only that, but it was live.
Yeah.
So this wasn't
ABC had ran like a Dateline special. Chris Harrison was the host, and I'm only mentioning that,
yes,
Pablo, to add to what I would assume is not pressure, but the seriousness of, like, ABC was putting like their best host on the project. I mean, Chris Harrison is like.
I mean, this is a 2-hour primetime slot.
Yeah.
You know, for people that, for the viewers that might not be particularly, they might not understand the importance of what this is, but a primetime slot on network, it's basically if your show runs anywhere from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, that is basically the 2-hour span where advertising is at its peak. So like networks make it a point to put the best programming in that 2-hour span. You know what I mean? Which is why you have your best shows, your best sitcoms, your best everything in that 2-hour span, and any network from CBS to NBC to Fox to whatever.
No. ABC did that back when TGIF Friday. Like, you know, everyone knows 8 to 10 is the big thing. And like I said, I just wondered how much that added pressure to your guys' unit, and how many people did you have assembled with the aerial unit?
For sure. The pressure, it's big because it's live. That's the thing. It live adds an entire different dimension to our job, because it's live, there's no room for mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If your shot, we're talking about, this is 16 cameras on this project, right? So obviously the public only sees one, maybe two cameras if they do a split screen, one or maybe two cameras out of 16. But if you happen to be the one camera that's live, any mistakes, you're gonna have millions of people watch it. You know what I mean? So the added pressure on the operators, it's to 11, because you know you're going live, and now you're like, every little thing, especially for us, like we use these remotes with these tiny little sticks that maneuver the camera or that maneuver the drone, is like, if you sneeze at that particular moment, and then the drone, like millions of people will see that mistake.
And I feel like
it enhances everything.
I feel like for this project versus, like you had said, Nick also did tightrope across one of the big Chicago skyscrapers. What's different here is there's no surfaces really. You know, there's no land. So you guys were more, two things that seem interesting or tough. There's no your drone. The drone aerial unit is much more important here, because there's other cameras, of course, that are stabilized, but there's not a lot of ways to capture these great visuals. And then secondly, I don't know, again, as much about this aside from what I hear from you, but what is that looking like with how many drones do you have out at one time? And you're talking about a 2-hour show, but that's not to say the drone can run for 2 hours. You know?
Exactly. That was that was actually the primary, and that's a great question. That was actually the primary concern for us, because the drones have a limited flight time, which is the unit that we use in this show. We're talking about 15 to 20 minutes of runtime. Now we're looking at a 2-hour event. You know what I mean? Where everything's live. So the solution that we came up with was we production wanted to have 2 drones at all times in the air. So we had 4 teams ready to go for 2 hours. And the way that we did it was that we had 2 drones in the air. They both took off before the show started with a certain amount of time in between. So when the first drone was depleting the battery, there was a third drone that took off, took its place, and then so control room in production will switch the camera to the third drone. The second drone will come back to base, switch the battery, wait, and then when the second drone was ready to come home, same thing, it will replace, and then it was almost like a revolving door of drones in the air. And then it seems simple when I say it, but it's a lot more complicated when you have a guy walking a tightrope with a flying machine about 30, 40 feet away that can easily hit him and then potentially cause death. And then having, 3 at a time moving in this very tight space within while trying to keep a workable shot for the director of the show. So having to manage all of that, it was quite challenging. Because
you have to communicate with the team, not your team per se, who is replacing the batteries and bringing I had to communicate. I was basically coordinating everything. It's 2 minutes of communication, right? It's your. Let's go with Xizmo.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's going to Xizmo to make sure our batteries and all that, if I'm understanding correctly. But then it's also on this side to keep the control room that you're letting them know.
The director.
I'm bringing this one. Wow. Yeah. But again, live with hot lava.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things.
It doesn't sound that easy. No.
No, it's not easy, and it's mentally exhausting because if you think about it, I was assigned the task of basically choreographing or like just managing this whole enterprise. And then in my case, I had like 2 headsets. One where I can listen to every single member of my team, which it's great, but at the same time, I'm also listening to them communicating with their counterparts. You know what I mean? The pilots communicating with their cameras. So it's a lot of chit chat of what they're doing in my ear. So it's almost like having a radio constantly changing frequencies in one ear, and then having the boss, the director in my other ear telling me, hey, I need you to do this shot, and then me having to communicate that now to one of my teams, and then, do this, and it's a lot of voices in my head and having to filter that out and then communicate what needs to be communicated. I think that was the most challenging part of it all. But I think I was lucky I chose the right people to do this with, and then we definitely we pull it off. That's the end of the story, is we pull it off.
Like I said, I supported the project because I, of course, knew you guys were taking on that project. So I supported it, though, as a fan, as a consumer, and, threw it on the DVR, and I was like, oh, let me watch this. No, I didn't even watch DVR. I think I watched it live because, at least broadcasted live. But then when I hear all the nuances of like stuff that we as the viewer, we take for granted, I think that has to be definitely the hardest part was, you have this team over here and those walkies get chattery, but then this team, those walkies also get chattery, the control room rather. and then to really be the instrumental person. What was it like as far as your team? Did you have your team? I don't know how big it usually runs, but how many more bodies did you have with you to accomplish this?
A normal team is 3 people. I had 9 people on this job.
Okay.
So I had 9 people to deal with, and 8, because 9 with me included. So I had 8 people to deal with, 8 people to communicate with, control, direct. So it got a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
I'll admit I lost my cool a few times, because during some of the rehearsals the days before, there was a big learning curve, because I don't think this is something that it has been done before, a multi-drone live event. So there was a learning curve about the logistics of how to make this happen. The plan that I had in my mind going in changed 180 degrees by the time we actually went live. So during that transition of changing the plan and seeing what works and what didn't and that sort of thing, I did lose my cool a few times, where I had to yell a little bit to some of my people. But it's one of those things when you have to be on top of a team. You have to also recognize when you do the wrong thing, you know what I mean, and keep the morale high. So there was a lot of apologizing from my part to my people. But that's also the other thing, is that you have to also find the people that can handle the stress, that are willing to not take things personally. They can understand each other and the everybody else in your team that has different levels of stress that you are, and then how they're reacting to it, and not necessarily make that a personal thing, but it also be able to take the humble pill and apologize
Oh yeah.
to
Well,
people
and
when you
those
know
people,
you were disrespectful, you were out of line for sure.
and no, well, and not speaking for all the other people who were on the team specifically, maybe just for this project or more
Yeah.
colleagues, that's different. But for those who are, as you mentioned, your high school friend Carlos, Xizmo, there's an attachment. The other
Yeah.
buddy you went to college with, studied, television production, comes back from the military. You guys link up, start building this thing. Because, I mean, it could be good and bad, but because there was such structure in the way you guys built, going back to friggin', Afropunk in 2010, I think it's nice that you apologize, because that's important, but I think there's some leniency with, we're really,
Yes.
we're really doing the best that we can, because we started this together. We understand each other. I've
Uh-huh.
seen, and you've probably seen their bads too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It goes back to what we said earlier. It's push and pull. You can't
Yeah.
have across the board being like, oh, nobody better talk to me that way, which is fine to have that confidence, but you have to say, I can't let my ego ruin the ship, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and you're 100% right. You're 100% right. I think in this business, this business throws you in so many different scenarios with so many different people with different personality traits. You know what I mean? Where you have to be flexible enough to not take things too personal, figure the best way forward, but also at the same time also realize when things are out of line, and then call them out when they are. You know
Right.
what I mean? I think there's a sweet balance there, where some people might take a little bit of advantage that that's the culture of, there is a hierarchy of or in the TV and film business. There is a hierarchy, of course. There is people that call the shots, but you also have to have the I think the personality trait to be able to dissect when you need to, by your head, just do what you need, what you're told, and also be able to go like, no, you just can't talk people. You can't talk to people like that. You know what
Oh,
I mean? And
it's
it's a
changing.
delicate dance, and it's a delicate dance, and not many people know how to navigate. But but I think it comes with experience. It comes with time. It comes with just being in the mix long enough.
I've done productions where I feel like I've done the most significant bits of work or whatever, or really smart and witty and right in the moment and making some great game time decisions. But then I've had a lot of really other times where I knew like, oh my gosh, the most minuscule thing, and for me to be quiet and just get it done is very important. One reference to bring up, and I'll stick back to drones in a second, but just reference of how to maneuver in this industry, you know, with friends, colleagues. Um, I always remember, see, Pablo and I love this TV show, How to Make It in America. And there's a scene in How to Make It in America. That's an HBO series. It was on for 2 seasons. It should have got a movie. It got bombarded by girls, but that's neither here nor there. And I like girls, but still it was girls, How to Make It in America. There's a scene where Eddie K. Thomas's character is talking to his 2 other best friends, and those are the 2 main characters of the show. That's Brian Greenberg, Victor Razouk, and so Ben and Cam. Ben and Cam are having probably similar stuff that you've dealt with your team at Xizmo, and even me. Like, you know, we've worked at American Latino TV, and we talked all great about it at the earlier top of this interview. But there's always going to be a little bit of friction. But Eddie K. Thomas' character, he says something like, "Business, sure. Money, yeah, that's great." I think the line is something like that. Business, sure, yeah, money, that's great. But sometimes it's who you're doing the business with that's more important. And when you opened up earlier, you said a sentence of like, well, I do what I do. Xizmo does what it does. I don't know how you worded it, but you worded it something like, I just do nothing special, I think you maybe said. Just to, you know, it was a very humble comment. But maybe why you keep coming back time after time and working with Good Morning America and working all these other big clients is because they like the business that they get out of you. Because it's not really about like who's the best sometimes. It's about who's the best to work with, I think. Kind of goes in the long run also.
Yeah. So yeah, no, well, of course, How to Make It in America. I mean, we bonded. I think that's the reason we bonded. It's our mutual love for that show. But I think that a lot of people don't realize the life lessons and the business lessons that you can get from that show. And like you were saying, a lot of the stuff, in business, there is a very, I don't know if it's a saying or not, but like in the show is like they do make the point of. A lot of the times it's who you make business with that is important. And then it is very true in production because, and I tell you why, the thing is that when you get into these very high stress productions or these long-term productions, because, you know, you got to also realize that, let's say a movie gets shot in the span of 5, 6, 7 months on average, if not longer, depending on the film and how complicated it is. If you're working on a TV show, let's say like in Law and Order or like in NCIS Los Angeles, whatever, like you're looking at a production schedule that spans a couple of months. You know what I mean? And so who do you pick to work on those projects? It's very important because you have to realize that at that point you're looking at the people you're working with much longer than the people that you live with. You know what I mean?
Especially with these schedules, these hours are terrible.
And it's a little bit like a family. But the difference is that you don't get to choose your family, but you get to choose your production crew for the most part. You know what I mean? And so there is a value on being pleasant to work with. Obviously, you have to back it up that with the quality of your work, but you have to also be pleasant to work with. You have to be able to be flexible with your demeanor, flexible with the stuff that you take, flexible with your character. Because I'm telling you, no matter how good you are, you know, how good of a camera person you are, how good of a director you are, or how good of a producer you are, or a gaffer, or an electrician, or whoever, no matter how good you are and how like the quality of your work is, if you're an asshole, ain't nobody want to work with you. You know what I mean? And it's true, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to work with that person for 4 or 5 months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you're a difficult person, it's just people are not going to work with you. And that's what it is. And then going back to the how to make an American comedy, is a lot of the time it is who you work with that can make or break a career or can make or break a project.
Yeah. It's How to Make It in America was, of course, a great bonding for Pablo and I, because we both liked the show quite a bit, and it felt very like truthful in our our own aspirations. And yeah, it was just so many great scenes in that show that make you question, like, oh, okay, cool. Am I going to go for the shiny object, or am I going to like stay true to my character and build something? Because anytime you're building anything, it's just, for me, it has to be building block on top of block on top of block.
Yeah.
If I, for my particular work,
it's about foundation.
Yeah, but people try to go the fast road. People want to either schmooze, they'll want to. There's so many ways to cheat and get around it, but it always comes to light. And I even say that as a discredit to myself. There's been times I've been on set with a bad attitude. There's been times I've been on a radio project, like, not my best, and it doesn't last very long. So I learned the lesson firsthand. I'm pleasant to be around. I also talk a lot of shit if necessary.
Yeah.
But I've had times where I was in my own head over other things, and you bring that to the project, and it's like, ooh, so it's important.
Yeah.
Before we get
if I can just introduce one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
It is like, for people that are watching this, that might be in the industry, don't confuse being pleasant to work with to being a pushed over. There's a difference, though. There's a difference. There's a difference between just, putting your head down and then letting people walk over you. That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between not taking things personal and then be able to be flexible to other people's genuine mistakes, and then be able to push through those. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the medium that we work on, it is a collaborative medium. There is different departments that do different things, and there will be mistakes being done by people that you don't have control over, that you can't do nothing about, but the result of their work impact how you work. And then is how you approach that, and how do you approach their mistakes, and that is a reflection of who you are as a person on set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pleasant is pushover. Yeah, that's not what you're going for.
Yeah, there's a fine line between.
You're going for being pleasant, but being present. There you go. You're pleasant, but you're being present, because there has been times I've seen, I've been like, the most interny green person, PA on a set, and I feel like there are it's rare, but there's certain circumstances, it is rare, where the big dogs will just outwardly just start chatting and, kind of like asking like ideas, not really ideas, because everyone of course knows what they're doing, but sometimes, I guess what I'm saying is, sometimes input will be asked upon you no matter what level. So don't just no, have an opinion, and that's important too.
Yeah.
But you guys have done good. I want to continue back on Xizmo one more time. We just talked about a 9-person aerial unit, travels to Nicaragua over this hot lava, all this game time decisions being made. The guy who's doing the tightrope potentially could fall. There's a lot going on. That's when your company, Xizmo Media, is put to the test. But sometimes your jobs are really, really fun. And I want to go to a really fun one where there was, I would say, less stress, which was Mumford & Sons album cover promo. And I believe the first song, there was some like a lyric video.
The lyric video of the first single.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Well, first you tell me your impression, and I'm gonna tell you a couple things that because I was also at the shoot, but I wasn't working for Xizmo. But talk about it. Go ahead.
I think that one was a very fun shoot. One, because it just on a personal level, you and I we were just talking as friends of what we had going on, And
we basically both have huge work schedules, and then it really becomes like I'm working because I was working at the time. I was working this particular gig. I was going to be the second AD on this like lyric video album cover. So I'm kind of chatting with Pablo, and then Pablo's also working on that same Monday.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those things when we were talking about each other's like next week because it was a Monday, I think. It was a Monday shoot, and we're like, "Oh, what do you have planned for this week?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm doing this shoot." But the thing that made it funny was because the production kept the whole thing on the wrap so much that you knew you were going to this location to do a job for a rock band, but you didn't know who the rock band was.
Yep,
and
that's
then
what I was told.
I got hired exactly the same. I got hired to go do a job in this location for a rock band, but I was never disclosed who the rock band. They kept it so on the wraps that we both figured out who the band was once we showed up on set. But as we were talking, it was like, oh yeah, Monday I'm shooting in this location, and you were like, oh yeah, I'm shooting in that location, and then we sort of like realized we got booked for the same gig separately by different people.
Because it was band X, and I was like telling Pablo, I'm like, oh, it will be in Long Island. That's where I'm going to be doing this thing. And you're like, oh, I got another project. It's also band X. So that to me was one of those kind of, as Pablo was saying earlier in the conversation, like it's the people you work with is really, really good. And that was really exciting to me because I'd worked with this production before many times, and I don't know how they booked you. I don't know how that works, right? But when I got there, I had knew the coordinator and all these people from who always work together, and I kind of kept it under wraps. I was like, I'm not gonna make a big deal about it, but it is freaking cool for me. And then later, like midday, I believe one of the coordinators was like, "Wait, Ronnie, you know the aerial unit?" I'm like, "Do I know them? We were having drinks at the bar yesterday." And it was one, and you'll talk logistics of the fun or whatever. I think your unit was just 3 people at the time, but it was for me. I was working as the second AD, and it was so fun. It was in Long Island. It was along like I think the southern part of like the Fire Island area, possibly. I'm not really sure, but it wasn't Fun Fire Island. It was just the beach. But it was so fun because you not only knew the band, once you learned it was Mumford & Sons, that was exciting. And when you work with such a big group like that, there's just such great positive energy. And then everyone connected in certain ways. So that to me was, when I see that lyric video, and I know that your work is on it and my work is on it, but we also didn't get the job together. That's like some real cool special stuff when you're working in production and staying busy in New York City.
Yeah, and I think there was I don't know how special it was for you, but I think it was an added bonus because I've been known to I don't know, because you were more I'm a gun for hire, like we're doing the aerials and that's about it. But you as a second AD, you were more in cahoots with the powers that be, the people that made the decisions and all that stuff. So you probably had more inside information that I probably wasn't pertain to. But there was that one added bonus to the shoot where, remember, there was a photographer,
Lewis,
completely outside from what we were shooting, that was shooting just pictures, just pictures like portraits more than anything. It was portraits of a lot of the crew and the van and the people that were there.
There was background. I remember because I was one of the people dealing with it.
There's a lot of extras of background talent.
Yeah, there's background talent. I always call them background talent because I've been an extra, and I'm like, no, background talents. So there's so much background, and there's the overall visual that they're going to do for the album artwork. But lo and behold, we didn't know what else was going on.
Exactly, we didn't know. We didn't know that was happening, or we didn't know that was the intention for it.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is I thought they would just do this, and we're referring to Mumford and Sons and the album artwork that they have, where we thought it would be background would be the people, because it was a beach setting and it was people. You didn't really see them. It was very nondescriptive, but you saw like a unification of people. It was really, really done beautifully.
It was a great concept.
But then Lewis, who was another photographer who was doing BTS, because they had the photographer who was doing the actual album artwork. They had BTS, who was Lewis. They had you guys, Ariel. It was really maximizing the experience. Literally everyone had fun. It was one of the greatest shoots. Some technical stuff at the beach and getting certain equipment onto the beach was a little tough, but nonetheless it was fun. And as Pablo was saying, we get the word that everyone is to take a photo. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm still working the job.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get to go take a photo because background, that's what they're going to do. Background finishes, they're like, oh, no. Everyone can take a photo.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was your team or if it was me from who I was, my particular group. One of either us came to each other and said, oh, you know that everyone's taking a photo. And so your team took a photo, I took a photo, and lo and behold, when the project actually got released, I remember it clear as day because we all drove out to right near Kent Avenue in Brooklyn and Williamsburg. Yeah. We went to the record store there and we picked up and I still have the vinyl of
the vinyl. I still have mine. Yeah,
and we're basically in it.
Yeah. That was
not only did we work the project, but we you'll see my face. It's the same.
And I tell you one thing. It was a very fun surprise because it's one of those things is that you work in when you work on a movie, for the most part there's always a credit section at the end of the movie and you can see your name on it. But when you work on these smaller projects like music videos or
little
commercials,
ad agency type stuff
or ad agency stuff like 30-second spots or that sort of thing, you never get credited on. So you never get to sort of have that smidget of pride of oh look, that's my name on it, like talent usually do. And so in this particular project, it was very it was a happy surprise that they did that, and then being able to buy the vinyl and then see the artwork and see your picture in the final product. And funny story, literally about, I want to say maybe about a month and a half to 2 months ago, and not to date this thing, but for people that might see it, we from the time of this recording, we did this at least over a year plus ago. Right? This is
close to 2 years. 2 years ago. Huh?
And I got a tag into an Instagram story from a friend of mine who had who I worked with in the past at NBC, who is a very music junkie, who went in a shopping spree of vinyls and bought the Mumford & Sons vinyl.
Oh, right.
Mind you, this is a year plus after the release of the vinyl.
Okay.
And then he posted on Instagram as an Instagram story. It's like, hey, I went to do a buy and run of music. I bought this record, and who do I find in this fucking record? one of my favorite drone operators. And then he was looking at my picture on that thing, on the artwork of the vinyl. About a year later plus. Same. It was a fun surprise.
As it was a fun surprise for us. It was a great shoot itself. Great, sort of the opposite of some of the other stuff we talked about, where things aren't coming together. This was peaceful. The beach was beautiful. Everyone got along, and then those little icings on the cake that I'm working my role and you're working your role, and then. Yeah. That's enough a really cool thing, but then it's everyone's getting photographed, and then we just after that you go about your regular day, you don't think nothing of it. But then when the album comes out, I remember because my brother loves Mumford & Sons, so when he bought the CD or whatever you buy these days at Amazon. I sound like I'm 90. he bought the music, and he's like, oh, I saw you, Ronnie. Like, so
Yeah.
that was an exciting thing. And obviously we didn't touch much on like the drone aspect of it or the aerial unit aspect of it, but it just goes to show like some really fun things. Not every shoot's gonna be fun, but like that one.
Yeah. But it's like, I
Really,
think that's like every job, like,
yeah.
in this industry, you're going to do, I mean, you're in this industry it's a job,
Mhm.
there is jobs, there is projects that are going to be very exciting, that you're going to take a particular pride about being part of them.
Yeah.
But also there are projects that you just do for money. That's
Do
just,
you?
it is what it is. That's just life, and like, I've done plenty of those. I've done plenty of
Yeah,
projects
yeah.
that,
But it's nice to
we
reflect.
just
And
doing it up. But yeah, it's nice to reflect on the projects that have an impact on you as a individual, and it had an impact of you professionally,
well,
because of either the challenges of the things that you took away from any particular shoot.
yeah, yeah. No, I look at my album often.
Mm.
Good memories there. Because you move so quickly, and because you, like you said, all those years ago, it was like trying to get footage at Afropunk, and build your name out. And now Xizmo's done a lot of just, client after client after client. You guys are just excelling in so many ways.
Yeah,
And you went through a lot of moments of like building it yourself because you didn't really know what you were doing early on. You
yeah.
said your
There's
words.
a lot of learning as you go.
I wanted to ask you in this stage a couple things. Where do you want to go? Like, stay focus on drone work, or do you want to also make a shift or a pivot to other aspects of production? That's one question. But
Yeah.
before you answer that, I want to know, because I know how you are. He's an ornery piece of s. Sometimes you move so quickly. When you are doing a project that allows you to travel, I wanted to know from you, if you get a chance to, as Whoopi Goldberg always says on the TV show, to enjoy the view. You're going to Zimbabwe, this rainforest. Ginger Z's the host. It's you said Discovery, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Discovery.
Discovery and Nat Geo. I don't remember.
Good Morning
Let's
America.
just put it as it's over the Disney umbrella,
Yeah,
because
huge
they own
project.
everything. Yeah,
Okay, so
huge project.
my simplest part of the question is,
Yeah,
for you, it's just work still, right? It is. Cool day at the office. Do you ever get a chance to, or do you ever get to like stop and reflect a little bit? I worry that you've worked so hard and you don't get to like ever just like sit back and chill and be like, yo, I'm here right now. What do you think about that?
I think I had
Because you're a bit of a workhorse, and I
yes,
know from experience that like people that have been around you get a little worried about like, how's he going to continue at this pace? And so when I see
yeah,
that particular project, um, with Good Morning America, and I see the behind the scenes footage that you guys put on online
yeah.
and stuff. I'm like, oh wow, I hope he got a moment to like chill, just even for a little bit. What do you think about that? Do you want to start putting more time into that?
I think it depends. It depends on the project a lot. A lot of some projects don't allow you to have the time to reflect on that, because at the end of the day, everything's about budgets. You know what I mean?
You
And
said that
sometimes
earlier.
when you,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, sometimes when you gotta go overseas, it's like you arrive on a Monday night, you start shooting on the Tuesday morning, and then you're gone by Tuesday night. You know what I mean? And it's like sometimes your passport says you were in this country, but
The
the
experience.
experience, it might not necessarily be there. And so part of the allure of the job sometimes is that if there's a lot of leeway on the planning of it, there's a lot of networks that do plan a lot of ahead of time, and then they ask you, hey, we're going to be in this country for 2-3 days, and you get the opportunity to push your return ticket for like 2-3 days, and then you decide to take that opportunity to take 2-3 days of a vacation to just explore
Yeah, yeah,
the
that's
country,
cool.
which we've done,
Okay,
we've
good.
done a few times. You don't get to do it all the time, but
Obviously.
sometimes when there is there is an opportunity, you do it. But you always take pride on those things, because depending on where you are, there are a few opportunities where you do recognize, and even if it's for a split second, where I think I'm lucky that my business partner Eddie is very in tune with that concept of appreciation, that he reminds me a lot, where we are in a very unique opportunity that has been created because of our work, because of our reputation, that has allowed us to be in a place that we might not have, expected or dreamed about being at. And he's good about, reflecting on it and making me realize that how lucky we've been to have been, number one, being, professionally being picked to do this job, and then also being paid to go to this location, and then be grateful about the, being grateful about uh, being there because of the fruits of our work. You know what I mean? And the fruits of of the quality of our work that has allowed us to be in that position. And so yes, I don't think personally, I would have appreciated that as much, but I think my business partner, he's good about making me reminding me that we've been lucky.
Yeah, because
We've been very lucky.
you move at a pace sometimes where it's like, like you'll look up and you'll say, oh man, I remember when I was 22, I could just like sleep very little and it was just go 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 go. I feel like all of the people that I'm around, my peers, we're all starting to slow down a little bit and we get tired. But for you, you're just always taking on challenge and task. But it's good, but it's obviously, keep it a fine line, again, push and pull, especially now that it's growing. So it is growing. Aerial unit is what has been your baby in regards to getting your business off the ground. What are we looking like as far as shifting back and doing other aspects of production? What's the goal there?
The goal is, for me personally, it's going back to the beginning of the dream, which is and was to be a production company, to be an all around place where we can produce, shoot, and edit commercial spots. I think I have a very professionally, I think I have a very soft spot in my heart for commercials, and I think that we can be very good at it, and then be very good about putting stories in a 30-second time frame, and be able to convey a message that also conveys the message of a particular brand or product. And it's one of those things where, like anybody, you have to adapt, but it's kind of like adapt but don't forget. You know what I mean? So for me, it was a matter of adapt in the sense of adapt but don't forget.
Okay.
Because the thing is, like, everybody has a dream. When you're in your 20s, when you're young, you have a dream, you know what you want to do. And you can see a lot in like interviews with people that have made it, like the I don't know, like the Zuckerbergs of the world, of the what's that Russian guy, the wine guy, what's his name? Van.
I don't know.
Fuck, I forgot his name.
What's the point of them two?
What I'm saying is, there's a lot of people that make a living out of life coaching people, right? And then they tell you, hey, you just gotta stick to your dream, and then you just you gotta move forward, and you gotta give it your all, and whatever. And then that's all like nice and good, and it works for some people.
Mm.
It doesn't work for everybody. You know what I mean? Because not everybody is in the same level playing field. You know what I mean? In my case, I was an immigrant kid with immigrant parents that had nothing. You know, like we weren't a family that had a house, that had a pension, they had a lot of the things that some other people have. We were like a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. You know what I mean? So my business decision had to be done based on my expenses and based on the things that I had to do. I didn't have the luxury of saying, oh, I'm just going to focus on this and I have some sort of safety net to continue to not produce and make money and pay my bills and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you get to delay your dream. So I guess my point is that sometimes if you're lucky, you can be in the process of being able to delay your dreams for something else that financially makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you have to forget about those dreams. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So, for example, in my case, my dream was to have a production company, a commercial production company, to do commercials, to do all these, top to bottom productions. But the drone business
Took off.
took off, and then financially that made more sense. So
Yeah.
for the past 7-8 years, that was my main focus. And so, but now that we've been lucky that we made that business thrive, I'm in a financial position where I can go back to my dream of making this company or making this production company, this commercial production company. So now my focus moving forward is
Back to
try
basics.
to make that dream happen. You know what I mean? Yes, it might be 15 years late than when I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do it now. You
There
know,
it is.
that doesn't mean that it's gonna be successful. Maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Oh,
You know what I
it'll
mean?
go somewhere.
But it was the decisions I made before that has allowed me to be in the financial position to be able to give that a shot. You know what I mean? And then that happens, that it happens. You know what I mean? And I think you gotta be able to recognize when to give in, grow, come back, give in, grow, and come back.
Yeah, you said adaptable, and what was the other one? Adaptable, and what was the other one?
I think that adapt and move forward.
Oh yeah, I you know what I like? Goal, but also be willing to let go. So you could have like, this is how it's supposed to be, but then you're like, let it go, like let everything go the way it goes. Do me one quick favor, just because your earphones are kind of rubbing on the shirt. Yeah, just watch that, because we want to make sure we can hear what you're saying. But yes. Well, that's exciting, and it'll probably work. And you didn't spend any.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it'll definitely work. It'll be fun. You're already going to be good at it. It's funny that you concentrate on like commercial 30-second spots. You said, oh, I think I could bring that to life. You know why? Probably because, yes, we talked about drone and aerial footage and that kind of stuff, but also American Latino TV, that was like another skill set that we learned, to take a lot of moving parts and condense it to a 3-minute package. So you're kind of already used to that, which is why.
Which is a skill that moves forward. It's
yeah,
a skill that
it's
is
probably
translatable.
why. Yeah, you talking with the ad agencies and whatnot, and you're working with Harley Davidson or whatever. I think from your experience, you have a natural way to understand what's being thrown out at you and condensing it. Like, okay, talking points. I know how to make that shine, which is really exciting. Do you have any? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say and I think that's the point. And if anything, just out of that I would love just to make very much clear that it comes across with your viewers is that time is relative. It really is. Because there's a lot of us have different pressures that are based on time. You know what I mean? Oh, you're getting old and you haven't gotten married, or you haven't gotten kids, or whatever the the societal conventions that are being imposed into you either by your community or your parents or what have you. And I think there is a point to be made that uh, your career it has value, it is important, and it is legitimate to be uh, uh, to be the focus of who you are as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm approaching my 40s. I'm single. I never been, I don't have kids. I don't have none of that. But to me, my career, it's my focus. You know what I mean? And there is value to that. And then if some people might not agree with that, well, then that is up to them. You know what I mean? And then I think it's that everybody it's happy in many different ways. You know what I'm saying? And then, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't, whatever the case might be. And that also applies to even, I think time also applies to career. You know what I mean? I wanted, my dream was to have this company, this commercial production company, since I left college when I was 23. You know what I mean? I'm past my mid 30s. I have not accomplished that, but I am in the process of giving it a shot. And then I'm just as happy as if I would have done it in my 20s, because I have learned, and in the decisions I've made in between have built me emotionally and financially to be able to then effectively give it a shot to what was my primary dream. So I would say don't let a lot of the misconception, or at least the set goals that society or your family puts into you to deprive you from having the gear or the emotion or the energy to move forward, even if it's not what you wanted to do at that particular time. You can always go back. Life continues. You can always move forward, and you can always go back to things.
Yeah, I think it's as long as your spirit is behind it, like as long as you're still intrigued, you really can do anything at any stage. There's no real obstacle. It's when you are trepid and you go into something with one foot, it's when it's bad. So I always kind of think like you should be going for your goals, but it should be like 100%. Or there are times to take a break, I've gotten spoken to with a lot of people who knew me in my 20s who only knew me as radio, and will always, almost would encourage to do, podcasting or whatever. And at that particular stage, I was enjoying more so like understanding, learning New York as like a city and a person almost, but I was enjoying like working different productions. Like that was really exciting to me, even if they were smaller, littler things, like the 2 first seasons of Married at First Sight, like that was a real cool experience to work production on. And like you can shift there, but then it doesn't mean you could not shift back to broadcast. The queen of it is Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was always reinventing yourself. So not saying what you're doing, going back to your original production goals, is reinvention, but in a way it is. In a way it's reinvented.
Yeah. Because I'm coming back with more knowledge, and I'm coming back to pursue that dream with one, more money, one, more knowledge, and then three, a better understanding of who I am as a person in my character, in my personality.
But also, that's a really good calling card, though, when you're dabbling into this next section, which was something you wanted to do when you were young. It's like, now think about the clients you're potentially pitching yourself to or whatever. It's going to be real hard for them to say you can't do it.
Yeah.
when you're like, you think I can't do it? I literally had, like, this big 3 drones in the air at one time, control room here, 9-person team. It gives you such credibility. Calling
100%.
Me and Pablo say that a lot of projects that you do should always be, it should always be money, of course. You got to be willing to say no if the money doesn't fit to your personal choices. But beyond that, it's calling card. there are things that I will do where I'm like, well, that's not really the rate I like. I don't even know if I really like the people too much. But if I have a calling card that shows that Ronnie could do this type of work in this type of environment, that's something I want to keep with me. You know, I just finished a project that was a bit of a roller coaster with me producing a podcast with VH1. And that's something that the way I went into the project, I expected it to go here. It, you know, everyone has differences of opinions, but I was like, no, I'm going to put my head down. And lo and behold, I did about 48 weeks on the project, and I consider it a really good calling card. Because let me tell you something, Pablo, more and more networks are going to be involving themselves in podcasting, and I'll just be able to simply show that calling card like, you know, you could hire whoever you want, but I could tell you I could do it, which is exciting.
Yeah. And I think just to make a cherry on top of what you just said, I think is that you have to have a level of confidence to yourself and to the quality of your work, and be proud of that. And then, because sometimes everybody takes a pay cut, everybody takes a project that you're not getting necessarily very well compensated with, but just because you decided to take a job that you think you should be paid more for, but you're not, that doesn't mean that your work should be less than. I think if you have, I think as a professional, and I think that's just me, and that's just the way I like to approach my work, is that I make the decisions of the projects that I want to work on. And if I made the decision of working on a project that I know I should be getting paid more for, or that I should be getting paid at all, you know what I mean? If I made the decision to say yes to that project, I'm gonna give them my A game. You know what I mean? I always give my A game to any project, because that's just a personal. That's just my personality. That is a personal feed for me. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna go into this project, whatever my role is, I'm gonna give that my A game. Whether that project goes anywhere or goes nowhere, I know that I gave my A game to that project. That's it.
See, I'm the
because
opposite.
if I'm not gonna give my A game, then I might as well not do it.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, if you don't pay me my value, you ain't gonna get the best Ronnie. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
It's just valuable. I mean, it's valuable. I mean, I'm not saying, like, some people will do some things for money, and then they'll reduce things, and that doesn't mean that it's wrong. They just, for me, the way I look at myself, I'm always gonna give my A game regardless of what it is, because I'm almost like an all to nothing. So either if I say yes, I'm gonna give you my all, and if I don't think it's worth it, even if I needed the money, I'm just gonna say no, because it's not in me to give you half-ass.
Well, yeah, you don't want to waste your time either. Yeah, you did. I think off camera we were talking about another scenario. It's like, I don't mind doing things till I'm blue in the face, you know, if it's a passion project even, or if it works and there's a calling card aspect to it. Yeah. But don't waste my time. I mean, I'd rather be sitting doing nothing than having my time be wasted.
Exactly.
You talk about Ecuador, but you also are such a New Yorker. You came in your teen years. Just when you chat with people, how do you you know, and you get to know somebody, do you represent yourself as like, I'm from Ecuador or I'm from New York City? Because I know how much you bleed New York. And that's not to say over on the Hudson side. Once it gets to the Hudson side, Pablo don't
I don't fuck around with that.
He would never have an office. Even if a great, beautiful office happened, he'll have it on the other side of the East River and Greenpoint, beautiful aesthetic. But on the other side of the Hudson, he feels like that's where dreams go to die.
Yes. Look, I'm a New Yorker through and through. I don't. You know, there's many people. There's many ways of how people had characterized being a New Yorker. For me, I you know, I'm in past my mid-30s. I came to New York when I was 14 years old. I've been 20 plus years living in Queens, New York. You know what I mean? So if I work overseas. You know, I was born and raised in Ecuador, but I became who I am in New York. So if I'm in Europe, Asia, Africa, whatever it is, Mars, if somebody asks me where you're from, I will always say I'm a New Yorker first. Because you know what it is that there's something about New York that it's so it is intrinsic about the location. It is very distinct about living here in so many aspects: financial, cultural, socioeconomical, and in very different ways that it is, if you can handle it, then you need to get the hell out, because it is and it's not to be mean, it's just not to be mean, it's just to be that's just it's a you know it's an advice, you know. Not everybody can make it in New York, and then it's just, it is what it is, you know what I mean. The lifestyle is different, you know what I mean. Like let me put it in an example, is that the financially where I am, I can see myself with what I have in my bank account with a very comfortable living in South Dakota, you know, with a
Why'd you say it like that?
with a pay for
Wells Fargo.
yeah, well, whatever, South Dakota, you know, the Carolinas, whatever, you know, Nebraska, Arkansas, Oklahoma, whatever. I can see myself there, and then be able to have a house that's almost paid for, and then a bunch of other shit. But but the excitement of life is in there. You know what I mean? The industry is in there. The the constant challenges that makes you grow, I don't think they're there. You know, I could be wrong, but
Well, no, they say
for
that
me, New
sometimes.
York, that's what I know. The challenges of my life have been New York. The everything has been New York. You know what I
And they
mean? And
also,
as we go, you know, there's a reason why the saying is, if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Because in New York, it is so tough to make shit happen than when you do anywhere else is I don't want to say it's easier, but it builds your being tougher than you can handle anything else.
yeah,
You know
and
what I
there's
mean?
also a value to it as well. Like even from the TV show How to Make It in America, I think there's a comment when one of the characters said, "A night in New York is like a month everywhere else." It's not to knock anywhere else, but it is really a proven thing that you can get so many experiences. Like for me personally, grew up in Southern California. The only other two places I've lived for about a year each were Las Vegas and, I dreadfully say, Arizona. But New York, I look at my time there, both mostly in Harlem and actually now quite a bit in Brooklyn as well, and Queens. Um, I look at it and I sometimes think I've been there forever. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like here it goes. This is my whole life. And then I'm like, no, I've relatively only been in New York, the on and off experience,
Yeah.
about 4 years, and then kind of sort of coming around on a second set of 2 years, you know, almost
Yeah.
6 collectively. But when I look at those times, I'm like, there's just so many times where like all these cool memories, and forcing myself to not kind of be a punk about certain little things, you know, and
Yeah.
kind of growing up in a weird way. So I'm with that too. Can you tell me? I'm not gonna ever argue with you in New York because you're definitely into that. So you are staunchly a New
Yeah.
Yorker, and then
But just to add, it's just, this is not a thing.
specifically a borough kid too.
Yeah, this is not necessarily a thing of. I mean, I don't want people to take it the wrong way. I don't necessarily are advocating in the sense to say that New York is better than other places, and not at all. I'm just I think every place has their uniqueness. You know what I mean? It just happened. It just has happened that for me, my experience has been New York.
Yeah.
And then the lifestyle of being a New Yorker is so distinct to anywhere else in the country. I will say that it just, whether you like it or not, it becomes part of who you are, and it becomes part of your being. You know what I mean? And then and for better or for worse, you know what I mean? Like, New York is not the cleanest place, it's not the greatest place, and many different factors, but there is something to say about New York that makes people come here. There is a reason why in such a tiny place there's so many people living here. You know what I mean? And then and I think there's value to that. And then, and you know, and then if you can handle it, you'll stay, and if you can, you might move and you can come back. And then, you know, but I think there is even the people that have come here for an X amount of period of time and then they leave for whatever reason, I think they take something about New York that it will always be beneficial to their lives wherever they go.
Yeah,
You know
those
what I
4
mean?
years, like I said,
You know, those 4 years, even if it's a 1 year,
it feels longer.
even if it's 6 months, I think New York, it's one of those places that hits you the minute you showed up. That it's a learning experience that if you take it the right way, and if you take it as a learning lesson, that even if you spend 6 months in New York or a year in New York, and then you go like I'm gonna go somewhere else, I have better opportunities, whatever have you, that 1 year in New York will serve you so much as a person, as a character trait anywhere in the world, that will make you a better person, or will make you be able to handle things better.
Yeah. No, you came to New York when you were in your teens. Who knows, you know, if you didn't, you know, if things would have not opened up the way that they did, and you met the cool people that you collaborated with, and you know, we have that Mumford and Sons moment. My last thing is just because we talk about fortitude and dedication and even like resilience, but reinvention. So I say this to everybody, but it's going to be different to you because you love J-Lo just as much as I do. We've even seen her at the Madison Square Garden, a big 50th birthday show
together.
That was so fun. The show that actually the lights went out actually, so J-Lo shut the city down.
Which I might say is the most expensive ticket I've ever paid for a single show.
It still was really exciting.
Worth it.
And I know
if I didn't.
And I know you like her a lot. So, but I ask every single person that I chat with about career, and you know, specifically like creative careers, talking about setbacks, successes, and that ultimate perseverance to succeed in this entertainment industry. So even if I'm talking to somebody they don't like J-Lo per se, I still ask them the question. So it's going to be good for you. Simply, what do you have to say positively about J-Lo and her influence on I don't know, the culture or the community?
I think for me, J-Lo is that. J-Lo is that example of a New Yorker, because I think that even though she doesn't even live in New York anymore, you know, and some people might give her grief about it or what have you, I think she carries that New York entrepreneurial spirit to heart, wherever she goes. Whether she lives in Miami, whether she lives in LA, whether she lives in whatever, whether she's doing a music project or a movie project or a TV project, whatever. I think she approaches everything that she does and is very, you know, New York mindset where you are open to do business, but you're vigilant. Do you know what I mean? Because there is a lot of trickery in New York. That's why it's harder. I think that's why people say it's tough to live in New York, because there's a lot of trickery. People will do what they have to do to survive here. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to, you know, filter the trickery from the realness. And I think that especially in the entertainment business, there's a lot of trickery. There's a lot of people that want to take advantage of people. And I think J-Lo's been very good about filtering out the trickery from the early stages of her career to now, where she knows where the trickery is coming, where she needs to do business, where she wants to grow, whatever we have you, regardless of where she is, regardless if she's in Miami or LA or whatever, that New York spirit of being alert, it's in her. And I don't think it will ever go away.
She also has a crazy amount of confidence. I always reflect to her doing the Super Bowl, halftime show.
Yeah.
And we all know Shakira's credibility and her, slashes, she's multi-hyphenated. You're almost watching the halftime show and saying, oh, wow, J-Lo is going to opt to close the show. Like, that's like as a fan watching it, I remember being like, oh, gosh, I'm a little nervous. Like, Shakira's going to set that bar real high. J-Lo, you got the nerve. I mean, I'm a big fan, but J-Lo, you got the nerve. And then when you see it, and of course she's scared and timid, I'm sure, on a personal human level. But, like, there is an allure of a glow around her where she's like, I'm just gonna give it. And that's what I like about it.
And fuck, I just forgot what the word you just said. The nerve. That's the word.
She has the nerve.
The nerve.
As a fan, I was worried.
I think that's the key word. Nerve. Nerve is the key word. I think New York builds a very unique nerve on somebody that's lived here enough that when you go anywhere or when you're exposed or you're presented to anything in your career, I think New York builds that nerve where you could be scared, you could be concerned, you could be aware or what have you, or just nervous about the task at hand, but it almost feels like a safety net. Your safety net is that nerve that New York has built into you. You know what I mean? That you just move forward and then you just trust that New York nerve is in the back of your spine, and no matter what, you're gonna pull shit off. You know what I mean?
It's a trust in yourself.
Yeah.
When you look around and you say, oh, I've already done some really interesting things and had such fortitude to get to my ultimate goal. You've already done that. I mean, I think of like what that meeting must have been like, Shakira's team, J-Lo's team, and then it gets assessed. J-Lo, you're going to close the show. I would feel like if I was J-Lo personally, I would have went to bed the night before and I would have been waking up like, what did I get myself into? Like, literally every eyeball's on me. Shakira is definitely setting the high bar.
It's international super talent.
Yeah, and then I have the audacity to come after her. Like, I would have went nuts. And J-Lo probably, again, on a human personal level, she probably...
I'm sure she thought about it. But there's that one part where she's like, yes, Shakira, she's a multi-selling international star. Because here's the thing about Shakira. She was a multi-national star on South America. We're looking at a very good 15 countries plus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
More millions of people than the USA combined.
Mm-hmm.
From Mexico to Argentina.
The resume's thick. It is.
The resume's thick.
Yeah.
Gloria support is thick.
Didn't usher her to us without a reason.
The support is thick. But I think it is, again, it's that New York spirit when you go, hey, I'm a New Yorker. That ain't shit.
Oh my gosh!
You know what I mean?
You and the New York comment.
You know what I mean? It's kind of, but it's kind of, for lack of a better word. You know, like it's just like it's kind of like I'm a New Yorker. That ain't shit. I mean, you have that overconfidence of that ain't shit.
Well, I think the way
you go like, yeah, this chick, Shakira, might have all of this, but I'm fucking J-Lo from the Bronx.
And
you know what I mean?
It's what we said earlier.
And he rises to the top.
Well, yeah, yes. It's what we said earlier. It's very push and pull, push and pull.
Yeah.
It means J-Lo gives so much of the respect as deserved to Shakira, but she still pushes and pulls and says, why am I not worthy to do what I do? And, it's not like J-Lo doesn't. Better. It does like J-Lo doesn't know that she's, often critiqued for, vocal. We could talk about that to her face. But why I like her is you got to have some nerve and some audacity to still go through all that critique and be like, yeah, I respect Shakira to the fullest degree, but I'm still going to represent myself. And that's something that why I look up to her, because sometimes I don't do that for my own self. Sometimes I let the stuff that goes on in my head slow me down for my success. And when I see J-Lo, I'm like, as long as she wasn't like arrogant or mean about it or whatever, but when I see her not talking herself down, theoretically, that's what excites me, because I think we all do it. I don't know if you do it as much, but I know that I've done it where I'm like, I put the obstacles right in front of me, and I'm like, no, Ronnie, I can't do that. I'm not worthy, et cetera, et cetera. And in this last 2 years, there's been a shift where I'm like, okay, I think I'm coming back in the arena, so to speak, of broadcast, which was my first baby. Obviously, I talked about production with you quite a bit, but my first thing was always broadcast. And so then I'm like, ooh, I don't know, should I do it? I'm getting a little older. It's always a hot, fresh young person, who has a better opportunity.
Yeah.
But lately I've been getting that J-Lo spirit that I'm just like, well, I'm as worthy as the next person. So to the people that think she's whatever and don't like her, that's why I ride with her so much. Anyway.
And I agree, because here's the thing is, I think not to seem crass, right? But even like,
crass?
no, not to seem crass, but as a straight landman, I think, one, physically she's hotter than she's ever been, and she's like, obviously the oldest she's ever been, because she's hotter now. But what I mean by that, not just in the superficial, not only in the superficial way, but in the professional way, I think, is that the confidence of knowing who she is and the talent that she brings and the following that she brings and everything in between.
Yeah. Yep.
The recognition and the confidence that she knows what she has, and then fuck all that if you don't recognize it. I think that has an immense value to an artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that in different levels that can apply to anybody else. You know what I mean? I think right now, let's put it this way. Right now, she is the and I mean, we can argue whatever with a bunch of people about Beyonce or Rihanna or what have you, but to me, as a consumer of pop culture, today, I don't know what day it is, but today, 2020, J-Lo is the biggest pop culture star anywhere.
Yeah. Anywhere.
Because if you really dissect, she's done everything. Everything. She had multi-million selling records as a musician, as a singer. She's done the biggest movies. She's done the highest rating TV shows. As an entrepreneur, she owns TV networks. As a commercial personality, she's done commercials for the biggest brands. I mean, name it. She's done it all.
Yeah.
She's done it all.
And not to mention consistency.
You know what I mean? And it is a consistency for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So if you want to say, oh, but Beyonce ain't shit. Well,
that I think Beyonce is a bit boring in the personality, although I like her.
Rihanna ain't shit, and I like Rihanna, but if you want to put toe to toe, sorry, but J-Lo has it all.
I think Beyonce's talented. I love her mother, Tina Knowles. I love her sister's artistry, Solange. Beyonce is brilliant, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like her personality is telling the world that she's not enjoying her experience. Whereas with J-Lo, we know J-Lo has the J-Lo effect. Like when she's with Mark Anthony, all I want to see her with is Mark Anthony. When she's with Ben Affleck, she takes him from being a schlub to, the hot thing she parades around or whatever. And then now it's like A-Rod, after his post-athletic career, and she's like sprucing him up in a way. It's the J-Lo effect. Anyways, we could talk ad nauseum about that. We're not going to do that. But again, congrats on all what you've done. There's so much to be looked at as far as if you want to see more on Xizmo Media, XizmoMedia.com, and probably more projects. So that's really exciting. Best of luck to you on sort of transitioning from continued work with Ariel, absolutely, but the next stage too, which is really an exciting time. Next time we do a podcast, a YouTube interview, it'll be more pop culture, and then we'll really
I can't wait.
Start trashing some folks. I mean, I
can't wait.
I'm very nice, but we tend to agree and disagree on so much. One that we do agree on is we both love Dua Lipa, so that's a good one, but very good.
I think Dua Lipa is a 2010 J-Lo.
I'm gonna end it on that. Xizmo Media, Ariel Cinematography, entrepreneur, a kid from Ecuador, and comes to New York City, specifically, Queens, and reps Queens to the fullest. As a teenager, specifically the week 9/11 happened was sort of around the time you had arrived.
Fresh off the boat.
It's such a crazy thing that that was what you first saw of New York, and it's still all these years later, over 20 years, still New Yorker, still pushing entrepreneurship, within your own stuff, and also pushing that for others too, because I know that you want everyone to win. Any last words?
I think the last word is just believe in yourself. Don't let anybody, I come from a very bottom of the barrel immigrant family, and if I can make it, you can make it. All you just gotta do is just put the fucking put your cojones on the table and then move forward. That's it.
I'm not drinking.
It's not a guarantee, but it's a good shot to do.
Yeah. And enjoy, and you got to enjoy your experience.
And enjoy the process.
You made a phrase, be adaptable, and then I can't recall the last part, but I said, have the goal, but willing to let go. It's a boomerang. Life's a boomerang. You'll send it out, it'll come back.
It's got to be elastic. That's what it is. You have the core. Yeah. You got to be able to, be elastic a little bit here and there without losing where you're coming from.
Elastic, like a fat belly when you pull up the fat and then it just drops. Anyways, you have
single malt scotch, buddy.
Okay, and I have water. So cheers and thank you.
Thank you, buddy.